listening to The Big Album Show with Paul Dillon and Dan O'Neill.
Welcome to our new season of the Big Album Show podcast. I'm Paul Dillon.
And I'm Dan O'Neill.
Don't forget, please follow us at The Big Album Show on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, and find us wherever you like in terms of we're on all the podcast platforms. We're both really excited to welcome our first guest of the season. He's the wonderful, unique, amazing talent, John Spillane, who has wed us all since 1997 with a string of terrific records. His latest record launches this October. It's called In Another Light. And John, you are really so welcome onto the Big Album Show.
Thanks a million, Paul. Lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet you, Dan. Lovely to be here. Thanks for the gig. Delighted.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you on the show. I have your fantastic book here, and it's a signed copy. You signed this in when you visited Fedamore in County Limerick.
Were you there?
No, I wasn't there, unfortunately. I had to travel for work, but my mother-in-law picked up the book and gave it to me as a Christmas present, and I was absolutely delighted. So it's great to meet you over Zoom. There's something absolutely beautiful about your music. There's, almost, I hope you don't mind me saying this. There's something
listen, hey, you're singing my song, my friend. You're saying all the right things. Thank you so much, Dan.
I know there's something kind of childlike in terms of the innocence within the music sometimes, as if you're like almost spiritual in a way, that you're so in touch with people, place, emotion. How do you kind of get yourself into the mindset which allows you to take in the world in the way in which allows you to write the beautiful songs you write?
Well, thank you so much, Dan. Well, I suppose what I do really is like I try and write a poem first, really. So I'm coming from a poetry place, so I try and write a good lyric that's, what I mean, which is, poetry. And then, like, if that's good, then when you put music to it, then that makes it into a whole different, a whole different thing. So I suppose that I'm a kind of a words mostly, and then the music is kind of gives it a magic dust then. So that's my method, really. I'm working on a fabulous song commission at the moment for 2 giant mechanical cranes in Cork Harbour, and I have to have it ready for the 22nd of September. And so what I do is I write lyrics and I get, folklore and stuff, and giant, they're named after 2 local giants. And then I'll do work on that for a few weeks. And then when I have it that good, then I'll come to the music later. So that's my method.
Okay.
Yeah. Jonathan, it's an enormous pleasure to have you on the show. And I was thinking about my own musical journey with you then through the years, and you've accompanied me on many's a card journey. So
thank you. I'm so honored.
Yeah. I'm old-fashioned, John, in the sense that the CD is still king. Myself and Dan come from the 90s, so we're still CD guys. But really beautiful. And one of the things that's always struck me about your music is that, in many sense, John, this is just pure speculation on my part. Bear in mind, I was in UCD for the sociology, so I come up with these things. Mm-hmm. Your music is really a kind of for me, a massive response to globalization, because it's so local, and so much now of what we hear is, has no sense of place. It could belong anywhere in the world. So much of mainstream music. And I think what you do, your capacity to bring it down to the very, very local, I just think it's something very, very beautiful. Of course, there's universal themes in it. But what I wanted to ask you about it, John, is something that's really interested me, is where do you see the role? I mean, this is your latest record is, of course, a live record. But where do you see the role of the album now? Because is the album the long format, is the long form record, is that still relevant now in a way that it was before?
I think it is, because I think it's an art form, and I think now because it's all individual songs on Spotify and, playlists these days, I think we're going to have to think more about the album. I mean, what I've done down the years sometimes is I waited until I had enough good songs to make a record, but in a way, they might not have gone together. You know what I mean? But I think we're going to have to think about ways of making a collection of songs that are relevant to each other, because I think a lot of the great classic albums, they're a set piece of work, so I think we're going to have to But I do think the album will survive because I think it's an art form. And the thing about music and songwriting is I think people do it anyway, even if they get no money for it, you know, or even if there's, you know, there's no record contract, there's no record company, we're going to do it anyway. So I think that the album will survive, and but I think people will have to think about it a bit more.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I mean, the traditional format of the record of the album has changed so much now, hasn't it? And the idea that our single album or a single record can have the kind of huge influence that it maybe once had, it's no longer that, maybe, with everything that's changed. But tell us about this record, John, because we're both really looking forward to that formal launch in October. But tell us about it. This is a live record.
Yeah, and this is like very, very sweet for me because there's 10 songs in it that span, you know, my whole career from when I started writing songs. And I picked, so I got a gig at a festival called the Right Here, Right Now Festival in the Cork Opera House, and I got to do 10 songs arranged for concert orchestra. And the first one happened last year on Paddy's Day. They did one of my songs with the RTE Concert Orchestra. So it's taken the songs, which are kind of folk acoustic, you know, songs, and giving them the big orchestrations. And there's 4 different arrangers, and they're all 4 are wonderful. A man called Paul Frost did the most of them. He did 5, I think. And it's a big cinematic feel, but it was a buzz for me to sing with the orchestra. And it was a big night that we did last December, which we recorded. And luckily, everything fell into place, you know, and that I was able to, it was a very huge challenge for me to sing with an orchestra, you know, and luckily everything fell into place. I fairly nailed it with the vocal. I had my friend Pauline Scanlon doing harmonies, and she anchored me. And then we had one go, and we captured a beautiful night, and every instrument was recorded separately, and then it was mixed, and I'm really, really proud of it. So it's got a big cinematic feel. So at this point in my career, because I'm 61, it's a kind of retrospective album of 10 of the best songs. And 3 of them are from last year's album. So hopefully the new stuff is as good as the old stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I'm very aware of, that the quality of the music has never dipped and waned ever. And in fact, if anything, it's getting better and better. Normally it's the opposite, you know, I mean, but it's lovely to see it's and In Another Light launch in October. And, you know, I think fans of yours are just going to really look forward to it, aren't they, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. When you mentioned when you said earlier on that we're going to do it anyway, to Paul's question about the album format, it reminded me of that song by Gillian Welch, you know, the one, it's called Everything Is Free Now, and that's the refrain in the song. It's a beautiful song, but I just thought I'd say
I don't know that, but I will look it up, because I adore Gillian Welch.
Oh, it's brilliant. Do check out that song, because she sings about the fact that, you know, this was written about you know, maybe about 15 years ago, just when the MP3 became a big thing, and she's talking about the fact that the record industry has realized that musicians and artists will produce for free. And she uses that line, and we were going to do it anyway, you know. So it's a really interesting song. You should check it out. But yeah, when you were speaking about your new album there, John, and you were talking about the fact that you kind of it's a one take wonder, in that it's a live recording, and you mentioned your friend Pauline singing with you. I just think the vocals are incredibly powerful on the album, and you know, it sounds every bit as good, if not better, than any studio recording I've heard of yourself. So I'd definitely recommend the album to the listeners. But when you kind of go into the setting of standing there with an orchestra behind you, is it daunting? Because I'm sure you're used to playing gigs with very much a smaller setup. Was it daunting to do that?
Yeah, it was extremely daunting. And like, we had a rehearsal 2 days before the show, and I realized at the rehearsal that I was out of my depth, you know, because like I play to a beat, you know what I mean? I create the beat myself, but it's, you know, it's a rhythmic thing. But with an orchestra, it's very free, and your man is waving the baton around there, like, and it's flipping everywhere. And I'm saying, where's the beat? You know, there's no drummer, there's no percussionist, there's no one to follow. So I was latching onto the harpist. The harpist was the nearest to a normal musician that I could see, you know. So for some of the songs, But if I found it hard to anchor myself, like to be in time with the orchestra, and he was saying, no, we don't play in time. We just leave it breathe. And, you know, we leave spaces. And I said, well, where do you leave? You know, so I was given them some MIDI files. So I realized after the rehearsal that I was kind of out of my depth. So I spent like a full day working with the MIDI files, trying to figure out, counting the beats, counting the gaps, you know, trying to get my place. So we had a rehearsal on the day, which went very well. And then on the night, I was able to, you know, stay in with the orchestra. You know, it's just, I don't have the training, you know. I mean, they're talking a language I didn't even understand. So a huge challenge. And I spent the whole night concentrating on being in the right place at the right time, staying in tune, and, you know, with the singing and not shouting and stuff like that.
So, yeah, we myself and Dan have been fortunate enough to have had other guests on the pod who have done similar type recordings, and you know, it's so fascinating to hear. I think people are going to really love hearing the tracks in this format, because I think people will be surprised. I mean, I love it. I just think what you did, I think cinematic, you know, really captures it. One of the things I'd like to ask you about, John, is on the show here, we normally take 3 tracks and we have a little look at them. And I was wondering if I could ask you, is this a possible question to ask? If it is, please let us know. But if you could take 3 tracks off In Another Light, which is there a 3 that you would choose? Is there a 3 that you say, wow, you know, that's really something there? Have you got a top 3 for us?
I have, and they're the 3 singles, and you know, and I didn't pick them actually. My manager Kira picked them. So the first one is Princess Street, because it's the first song, like it's from 1983 or something. Like when I was 21, 22 when I wrote that song, and it was my first, you know, big song, or you know, and Princess Street. You know, I'm very proud of it that it has survived, because in 2020, just before COVID, there was a competition in Cork City Library, lads, for Cork's favourite song. And the public put in a huge amount of songs. And like, I have a lot of songs about Cork, you know, Passage West, you know, I have songs about Mallow, Ballincollig, you know, Princess Street. So I had a lot of songs on the list. But in the top 10, I had Princess Street got in there. Up against The Banks of My Own Lovely Lee, The Boys of Fair Hill, and Pucker Bwilla, you know, big songs, like, you know, and ultimately it was defeated by the Franken Walters. After all, you know, fair play to the lads. But still, the fact that Princess Street got in there was huge for me. Yeah, you know. So I've had a lot of great positive affirmations in my songwriting career, but that was one of them. You know, so Princess Street was definitely one that I'm very proud of, and the single is coming out today, I think, or the video will be launched very soon anyway, in the next day or two. And
really video.
So we've made a lovely video. So Princess Street is one, and the second one then is The Dance of the Cherry Trees, which is which we released as a single in May, and I think it's a beautiful arrangement, you know, because it's very, you know, glorious and lush. So that's my second one, Princess Street, The Dance of the Cherry Trees, and the third one then is Passage West, which is the orchestrator did a big, you know, big drumming, tattoos, and totally got into the big picture. So they're my 3. Thanks, lads.
They're fantastic choices, John. Like, I'm going to be a bit self-indulgent here for a moment and just comment on some of your songs that you've mentioned, and maybe throw in another one, because I just want to give you kind of my relationship with the songs. Like you mentioned, The Dance of the Cherry Tree, and every time I think of that song, I remember I was living a few years ago now, maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, I was living in Ringsend in Dublin, in a place called Stella Gardens, and there's cherry blossom trees on the road in Stella Gardens. And I remember one day I was feeling particularly anxious and a little bit down, and I saw the cherry blossom trees, and your song came into my mind, and that whole concept of, you know, traveling around the world, and, you know, that unity of, we can do this, lads, come on. And then when I was reading your book, I was struck by the fact that you wrote it in 1998 when you were in a bit of a bad place in terms of the weather and so on. Will you tell us a little bit about writing that song and why you think it appealed so much to people?
Yeah, well, I think I was very lucky. I was very blessed to get that song. I was very down at the time. My health was bad. I had a thing called a collapsed lung. You know, I think it was from too much rock and roll, really, like, bad living. And so I was run down and I was in the hospital and but I was okay. I mean, it patched up fine and it never recurred. But it happens to musicians who have too many late nights, among other things. So I came out of the regional hospital in Cork feeling really down and, feeling, I suppose, sorry for myself. And it was a very grey and dark April afternoon. And I was feeling, down. And next thing I saw this cherry blossom tree, which seemed so colourful and so bright, in total contrast to everything, the greyness of the surroundings and the greyness of the sky, and seemed kind of illuminated almost. You know what I mean? Seemed like kind of almost shining, like with the pink blossoms, and ridiculously happy and bright. So it seemed like almost like, say, like a vision, but like, so I wrote the song. But when I wrote the song first, I used to sing it quite slow and it was quite sad, But then when you do it fast with a bit of a more pickup beat, it's happier. So it's an interesting song that way. But no, it's amazing because the visual aspect of it means that a lot of people, it's like, lads, it's like I own the cherry blossom trees in this country. That's what it's like. That's because people see it and they think of the song. Yes. People see the tree and think of the song, so it has got into the national consciousness in some way. So it's fabulous. And people tell me stories all the time, like when my child was born, there was a cherry blossom tree outside the window and I thought of the song, or when my grandmother died, I saw a cherry blossom tree, or, this kind of stuff. So fabulous connections.
And before you jump in there, Paul, I just want to jump on another song that you didn't mention that's on the album, which is another one of your classic songs, which is All the Ways You Wander. And I genuinely think that's one of the most beautiful Irish songs I've ever heard. And that's not, I'm not just saying that because you're on the show, John.
Thank you so much.
I really, really believe that. And it's one of those, like, I play a bit of guitar myself, and it's one of those songs that I like to play. And it's one of those songs, if I'm trying to get my daughters to sleep, that I will sing, because honestly, it's so beautiful. And one of the when I kind of listen to the lyrics, the bit that kind of stands out to me as a bit that I it's not that I don't understand it, but it poses a question mark, is the refrain, the bit that says, "I'll wait for you like a true friend, I'll wait for you till the very end." What were you thinking when you wrote down those lyrics?
I suppose I was saying I love you, really, and I'll always be here for you, really. That's basically the thing. Like, I mean, I wrote it for my daughter when she was small, and we were a bit, I had broken up with her mother, and then they went to Spain for a while. So I was sending her stuff to Spain. She was only 4 or something, 5, and I sent her stories, and I sent her that song, and stuff like that. So like a kind of a lullaby. I'll wait for you. I'll always be true, I suppose, something like that.
It's an absolute fabulous song.
Thank you so much. I'm so proud of it, and it's got a new life recently because it got translated into Irish, and there's an Irish language version of it now, which I did not translate it, but this guy called Simon O'Spillane, but it's working really well. And the singer Edel Vaughan, now in County Clare, who sings with the Kilfenora Cayley band, is recorded the Irish language version, and it sounds quite Shanosy. She slows it down, and so the song is going well. And thank you so much. Anyway, I'm so delighted you like the song, Dan.
Yeah. Before we hit onto a kind of a rapid fire buzz round from Dan, I just wanted to say to you, John, or put it to you about what you do. And again, it's not to be sycophantic, because we try to be just honest we're just music fans, and we just try to be honest. But what's always struck me about what you do is you bring connection to your music, and you connect with people. And I love the fact that you play so many small local gigs around Ireland in places that I've never seen a gig. And you see
exactly.
I just think that's absolutely fantastic, and that you connect with people on that level. And we're being so lucky to have so many great guests on this pod, and people we really, really like and really admire. But one thing that strikes me about you, John, is your accessibility, that you don't bring with this. You bring a connection with the audience and with the listener you don't put yourself above people. You seem to have this great gift to connect with people.
Oh yeah, well, I'm definitely not above anyone. I mean, do we not live in a republic where everybody is equal and the person who serves you your food is not beneath you in any way? You know what I mean? You know, so but I do love like Fedamore, for using it as an example. I love being invited to places like that, you know, which are in County Limerick, call it the Back of Beyonds. But I mean, I had a fabulous night, and the warmth of the community there was brilliant. And I'd love if they kept me on and said, we want a song about Fedamore, because every place like that has local treasures. You know, there's holy wells, there's standing stones, there's legends. You know, Ireland is full of this kind of stuff, and so much of it is lost. So tell the crowd in Fedamore to bring me back, and tell them to commission me for a song as well. You know, so I love that kind of fun. You know, that engagement.
Yeah. Well, that can be sorted, I'm sure. Okay, quick fire round of questions. As I say, these are kind of just for the crack, so don't take them too seriously. Okay. And whatever comes into your mind is the correct answer. You know, it's not. It's just for the laugh. Okay, so the first album you ever bought.
The White Album by the Beatles, and I adore the Beatles.
Yeah, well, we're two massive Beatles fans, but then again, everyone's a massive Beatles fan, I think. What's your favorite type of weather?
Oh, I like a sunny day. Yeah, I like the blue skies and the sunny day. Yeah.
Okay, your favorite food?
Oh, you know, potatoes.
Potatoes.
Yeah, I'm a real, like, you know, roast potatoes, boiled potatoes, smiling out of their jackets, chips. You know, potatoes in all their forms.
As a Cork man, would you like a crew bean?
Nah, I wouldn't go crew bean. Too fatty for me.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, what song by someone else gives you goosebumps?
Oh, I love Leonard Cohen songs. He's one of my favorites. I picked the one about I Loved You in the Morning. Hey, that's no way to say goodbye.
Brilliant choice. What's your funniest memory?
Oh, gosh. I'm not getting one now off the top of my head. I'll think of what happened over the weekend. I good crack yesterday because I was in Clare Island, and there was a guy there from County Limerick, actually, from near Knockalong, and he was an old guy, and he'd been to India, and it was the worst. He was the wrong person to go to India. He hated every second he was in India. He couldn't get out of there quick enough. And as he recounted his experience of being on the Indian subcontinent, we were just rolling around laughing. So that was the funny thing. That was the laugh over the weekend.
Brilliant. If you could choose, if you could choose what you dream of, what would you dream of tonight?
I'd love to get more in touch with the dreaming, you know. Oh man, the opportunities there are enormous, you know. But I'd love to remember, I'd love to dream of like days of childhood, you know. I'd love to remember certain days because I think the childhood memories are very selective. I mean, you went to school probably like about 5,000 days, but you only remember like, you know, 7 or 8 of them. You know, so I'd love to get the best days of your childhood and be able to dream them back.
Brilliant. Yeah. Great. Another brilliant answer. 2 more questions for you. So what's the worst bit of advice you've ever been given?
Oh, Jeannie. I can't think of a clever answer to that now off the top of my head, Dan. The worst bit of advice I've ever been given. I don't know. I'll have to skip that one. Can I do the best bit of advice?
That's the next one. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the best bit of advice is keep on doing what you're doing. Yeah. And I say to people all the time, and I do a lot of songwriting workshops, and I said to people, keep on doing what you're doing. And you know, that seems to be like, you know, a bit of a breakthrough. You know, the worst advice. I don't know if I ever got I suppose people told me, people did tell me you'll never get nowhere. Yeah, people did say, you know, like you're mad to, you know, with the music and to be a professional musician. I mean, I did not receive encouragement as a young person, like to go and be a professional musician. Yeah. You know what I mean? No, I don't think anybody said to me, follow your dreams, John, do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so, so there was a lot of, I won't say bad advice, but negative kind of attitudes, really,
But you've overcome. You've done it, which is and we're all the wealthier for it, which is excellent. And
well, I tell everyone to follow their dreams and take chances and have a go.
Sure. What else would you be doing?
What else would you be doing?
What's the point of doing anything else, really?
It's kind of there's a lot of fear and stuff, but I suppose my generation, there was more of that as well, because there was more fear of economic poverty and stuff,
Yeah. Just to recap, John, before you let us go, because you've been very generous with your time. In Another Light is out on the 14th of October. Princess Street is out on the 16th of September. That's the single, and all recorded live in the Cork Opera House. It's got this terrific orchestral sound. Obviously, your fans are going to love it. Hopefully, it'll win you even more fans. But before we let you go, is there any upcoming gigs or appearances that your audience would like to hear about?
Yeah, well, all my gigs are on my website, www.johnspillane.ie, and also, my Facebook page has a lot of the upcoming gigs. So there's a lot of gigs happening, and but I won't be touring with the orchestra, like there's a big gig in the Pavilion in Dunleary coming up now in October.
Great venue, terrific venue, actually.
Lovely venue, yeah,
really good.
So I'll be unable to bring a 24-piece concert orchestra, but I'll do the songs and I'll do the best I can, and I'll have to go back to imagining. Like often, I think I've played alone on my own with a Spanish guitar, but imagining vast orchestras and choirs of angels and trumpets and strings. So I'll have to go back to the imagination now. But it's fabulous for me that it has been done. Yeah. That the songs have got the treatment. And
I know that it's going to stand the test of time and just be really, really well received by your fans. And Don, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's just been terrific to have you on. And we will be, of course, promoting the album and talking about the album right up until its release. But hopefully, when people hear this pod, remember, of course, to support the record and support other singers and folks in sports, because I think it's very important at the moment that we support our local bands and local artists, and I think that matters a lot.
Yeah, I've always been like into support your local rock band, support your local folk singer, as opposed to Neil Young, who is brilliant as well, but
he's got plenty. Yeah, he's got enough, hasn't he?
He's kind of under. Yeah,
I've talked
Elton
before.
John, they're kind of.
He's got.
They're in good shape. Yeah.
I remember before seeing Joe Strummer, sadly taken from us at only age 50, but I got to see him in the Olympia, and he had a terrific message, which was support your local bands. Terrifically solid stuff from him, and I think it's a sentiment we all share. So thank you very much, John, for coming on the show. It's been absolutely brilliant to have you on the Big Album Show.
Thank you so much, Paul. Lovely to talk to you. Thanks so much, Dan.
Thanks a million, John.
You're listening to the Big Album Show with Paul and Dan. Please remember to subscribe, hit like, and remember to follow us on our social media platforms at the Big Album Show.